do the sex.
Today's locker room talk topic is the pleasure inside, how to have an orgasm without a vibe. I know, you're all skeptical. I'm skeptical, but I have someone here who has the guide to this whole experience, and I'm super excited to talk to her today. Her name is Ali Gomulka. She is a pleasure coach. She is in Australia, so we get to enjoy her sexy accent. That's so American of me, but whatever. You know, I'm a dirty bitch. That's the way things go. And she, well, I know, Ali, you focus on a lot of things, but this really seems to be your area of passion. And I think this is something a lot of vulva owners, women, and their partners are going to want to know about, because I do know that as I have gone through my 365 days of orgasms, and I talk about toys and vibrators, which I love, one thing that constantly comes up is this concern about them never being able to have orgasms without the assistance of a strong vibrator. Now, I like good, strong rumbles, but I definitely, I'm excited to learn about, how to ignite that level of excitement to the point of an orgasm without. So, Ali, I would like you to take a moment to introduce yourself to my listeners.
Awesome. Thank you. Firstly, thank you for having me on the show, and thank you for listening to the listeners who are tuning in. So yes, I'm Ali Gomulka. Well, that's my Aussie accent on my last name here, Gomulka. I am a pleasure coach. I started my own journey because I was a woman who, I was over 30 years old. I had never experienced an orgasm, let alone pleasure, without a super high-powered vibe.
Wait, okay. Without, I thought you were saying you made it to 30 without one at all, but without it.
No. Without a super high powered vibe. But can I tell you, when I say super high powered, I mean, if the batteries were at all going fucking flat, that's it. Boom, no orgasm for me. And everything was, I could very easily make it happen, 2 minutes or less, sometimes 60 seconds, commercial break in the TV show I was watching. I could very easily do it that way. However, it was a very specific way, and if the batteries were flat, it wouldn't happen. And my whole sexual experiences were either no orgasm at all, or faking it, or with an ex-partner, we used a vibrating cock ring. So that's, for the listeners who don't know, it's essentially a cock ring that goes over his cock, and on the top is a bullet vibrator. And the whole sexual experience was based around this coming out and me lying on top of him in a very specific way to have an orgasm. It wasn't even a variety of positions. Sorry, keep going.
So relatable. I'm just over here going, my God, it's like you're telling my story. Yeah.
And I remember one time, so we had booked this weekend away, and it was meant to be this, romantic, raunchy getaway. But my libido was so fucking low there. And I really wanted to be this, sexual goddess, but it never came out. But we had, booked this. It was meant to be this romantic getaway, trying to reconnect sexually. But of course, we forgot to bring fresh batteries for the little cock ring vibrator. So the cock ring vibrator was dull when we got into it, and I ended up hopping off him, having a big hissy fit and a sook, but it was coming from this deep frustration that was the only way I could feel anything. So I feel sorry, I look back now, and he was so patient with me. he really was, but I was so disconnected, and I got so, frustrated that we kept trying for the orgasm to come, pun intended, and it just didn't happen because the batteries were flat, and it just, that was the only way back then that I could connect to some sort of aliveness. And like I said, my libido was low, that, I would sit there wanting to be this woman, wanting to be someone who, wanted sex and, initiated sex. And I remember I've spoken before about watching, a movie and going over half of the movie, sitting there internally willing myself, just make a move, just do something, be that sexual freak, be that, sexual goddess, do it. And I just couldn't will myself to do it. And it was like this part of me that wanted to come out, but I just couldn't get her out. And the only way that I could connect and feel some sort of aliveness was with that super high powered 2-minute vibrator. And, once I would force myself to, will myself into sex with, my partner who was, I loved him and he was amazing. It was nothing, there. But once I would start, I could kind of, I would say enjoy it to some degree, but certainly not epically pleasurable. So what I have awakened now, and I want to talk about what I've awakened now of the array of pleasure and the depth of pleasure is nothing for what I thought pleasure was back then, and what I thought was pleasure. There was so much more waiting for me, and so I went on this journey. So I'd been, let me just say, I had been, because I thought there was something so wrong with me. I thought I was broken. She was a psychologist who specialized in sex. I saw her, got nowhere. I tried. So do you remember the We Vibe? Is it still a big thing now?
Oh yeah.
So yeah, the We Vibe toy that came out. I tried. I thought that this was going to be the big way of me being able to, feel pleasure a different way. I tried. Do you have over there horny goat weed?
I don't know, but I'm willing to try it.
No. It's not weed. It's not weed as in pot. It's called, no, don't get excited.
I told you I'm in Portland.
Yeah, well,
I'm in Portland, man. Come on.
It's called horny goat weed, but it's just a mixture of herbs that's supposed to increase a woman's libido. It's nothing to do with weed or marijuana.
Right.
I tried that to try and increase my libido, obviously did nothing. I would research books all the time, how to have orgasms, how to have multiple orgasms. We bought a Tantra board game. I tried everything pretty much that you could think of. I spoke to my doctor. That was the one who referred me to the sex psychologist. Everything you could think of. And I still couldn't ignite my libido, my whole, fucking sexual fire, and couldn't feel my orgasm, let alone any real pleasure without the vibrator. And then I started tuning inwards. So the first thing was I started understanding manifestation, all of that. So I started, and this is what I believe, put the people in my path to understanding and learning this. Because then all of a sudden one day on Facebook, this crazy sexuality leader was talking openly about this stuff. And I thought, who the fuck talks about this on social media? And now look at me. But I thought, who the fuck talks about this? This is crazy. And I was so confronted and triggered. Yet there was that part of me that was like, this is it. That these people, these sexuality coaches and pleasure coaches that are teaching this stuff, this is what I've been waiting for. And so I went on my own journey of reconnecting back to my body and learning that, and awakened the most, incredible. And I always talk about the orgasms because I feel, that's the forefront. We all want that. We all want that incredible pleasure, but it's so much more, because when you connect to your body and your orgasmic energy, which is the energy inside you, your life force energy, everything, I look at it as though there was before orgasmic and after. It's like I see it as I came to life, like not just in pleasure, not just in orgasm, but it was the awakening, the unveiling of me.
Yeah.
And then I went on to study as a somatic self-pleasure practitioner, and I now teach other women.
And that's what you are now. Can you tell our listeners what your official title is and where you're at now?
I'm a pleasure coach. I am a qualified somatic self-pleasure practitioner, which is, the work that I use to come back. But it was so much more than that, which is, the work that I encompass of bringing out in a woman her unapologetic state of pleasure and orgasm. And I help connect women back to, their body, their pussy, their sexual energy, so they can feel more. And it's not about, I feel like a lot of people, because I talk about feeling more without a vibrator, and I feel like a lot of people think that I'm against vibrators. I'm not against anything. I am here for pleasure. I am here for whatever gets your juices flowing. But I am here for the women who want to feel more without their vibrator, who feel, dull, asleep. Essentially, this is how I felt, and feel like they can't feel anything without it.
Right, right. And I think that that's the exciting thing about this conversation. So now you have Ali's background, and if that didn't get you excited, I love it though. I mean, I think that it makes you relatable. Sometimes when you're talking to sex therapists or when I should talk from my own experience, you wonder like, well, how do you know? Do you know what it's like to be that woman? I feel like my journey's a little bit like yours. And it can feel it. And yeah, you can feel broken and like something's wrong with you. And so, but let's get on with this. So wait, what are you drinking today? Where are you at? What'd you bring?
I'm having a coffee because it's morning here in Australia, Gold Coast. Not so sunny today.
I just started a store, guys. I don't know if you can see it, but I have my mug. It's a coffee mug. It says raw, honest, and feminist as fuck, which is our tagline.
Oh,
and my little logo is on the front. You can't see it well, but I opened a shop. You can go to She Explores Life shop and you can get a little mug too. But in mine, I'm kind of ashamed to say, it was all that was in the fridge and I had a busy day. I'm drinking a White Claw. It's like a White Claw is like the worst of the hard seltzers. I know. I'm genuinely embarrassed to be sharing that with you. I thought I'd be doing like champagne or something sexy. I had told Ali, because our time frame different, I think it's like 17 hours. I'm like, I'm going to have a cocktail to your coffee, but no, I have a fucking White Claw. So, but whatever, let's raise our glasses. Let's get ready to talk about sex. That is what we're going to do. I'm so excited. Bring it on. Cheers.
I could literally talk all day, talk underwater about this. And as I was just speaking to you before we hit record, that it's so important for me to speak openly about this, because I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't come across the women who had ignited this within themselves and spoken so openly. And that initial me being triggered was exactly what needed to happen. I was triggered because there was a part of me that was repressing that within me. Yeah. So I'm so passionate, and the women, my clients, even just my followers on social media, I get messages and comments daily that are just, oh my God, I thought I was fucking broken. I thought there was something wrong with me. I thought I was the only one. And I'm like, no, you're not broken. No, there's nothing wrong with you. No, you're not the only one. And yes, you can feel more if you want to feel more. So you pretty much can't shut me up about this.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting. I feel like I have become that way especially over the course of doing this 365-day journey that I'm doing. It has changed my fucking life. And it's really hard for me still at this point, because I'm still in the middle of it. Or no, I'm more than through the middle of it. I'm still figuring out how to share what I've experienced. But your topic that you proposed to me, when I reached out to Ali, I knew that, of course, she had tons of knowledge she could share. I was really pulled towards this idea of learning how to experience pleasure without having to need vibration, because across my own journey, for the first time, and I always repeat my age, I'm in my 40s, I'm 48. This is the first time in my life I've started to feel internal pleasure, like really. Like really. And it's been life-changing because, oh God, when you do learn how to wake up your body internally, especially for women, because I think that's where we really just get confused. It can be painful for some of us due to lots of different things, which I want to talk about with you. Boy, it is empowering. And it changes your life. So I want to start with, do you know, and I looked up some, but I figure you might know more, the stats on the number of women who can't, are reporting that they
Yeah.
can't have internal orgasms, or like, can you throw all that information at myself and the listeners so they can know really how
Yeah.
dire this is?
Yeah, so this was a statistic that I read often back then, and the stats are slightly varying, but it's around 80% of women cannot orgasm from penetration alone.
Yeah.
And I would read that statistic back then, and like a lot of women now, and it's interpreted to believe that because they can't at the moment, that 80% of women aren't, it's not possible. And that's how I interpreted it then. I thought, okay, well, maybe I'm just one of the percentage that can't. Maybe there is, this magical lineup before you're born that a few small percentage of us are born to feel pleasure internally. And
Yep.
I bought into that. And
Yep.
the sad thing, and what I came to realize when I connected and I understood what orgasm actually is, that you can connect to your orgasm without touch. You can connect via awareness. And there's a lot of, women on my social media. There's a small percentage that will, and I get it, because I was like that too, who want to defend this and say, no, well, most of us just can't. And I say, but that doesn't mean, it's not, there's nothing, if there's no medical issue, there's nothing that's stopping you from feeling more internally. And then I'll have other women that will come on and say, yeah, she's right. I had an orgasm for the first time via breathing, and an energy orgasm via breathing. And I never thought this possible and all this. And I get it, this wanting to defend this and say, well, no, you just don't know my body. And I'm like, no, yeah.
Why? Can you tell me? I mean, I have my own ideas. Why do you think they want to defend that? And I want to tell you, like, it's crazy having this conversation. This is the first time I've actually had this kind of conversation. I was also like you, and I also bought into it. And I also just thought I had been cheated, and I felt very bitter about it. And I'm like, oh, I'm just one of the, and so I would say to someone before I had sex with them, don't expect an orgasm. I'm just one of those women who doesn't really orgasm often. Like, it's probably not going to happen. And I thought I could only do it alone, and or I faked my way through it just so I didn't have to put up with them trying so hard that it became a turn, like all of that. But so I'm curious about why you think women feel like they need to defend it when you're like, no, it's possible.
Yeah, because I think it's our way of, saying, well, I'm not broken. This is normal, that most of us can't feel this. And that's certainly what my mindset was back then, that I would defend that and say, well, there's no point trying and having, to fear failure. I hate saying the word failing, because it's something you awaken within you, but it's this fear of, well, this is just how I am. And if I, buy into that and stick with that, then that's my defense that I'm not broken. Whereas it's the opposite, that no, you're not broken and you can feel that. But I feel like, if that makes sense,
do you think that there is, because I think that maybe there's a fear that if I take that leap and I believe you, and I follow that path with you, and I still don't have an orgasm, then I'm back to something's wrong with me. And do you know what I mean? Like, whereas if I just stick with the fact that this is normal, then I'm normal and not broken. But if I follow you down that path and I can't figure it out, then I am broken. And now it's at worst case scenario.
Yeah, definitely. And I think very much so. And in fact, the biggest part, the thing that took the longest for me to click, that actually had me awaken to more pleasure, was letting go of even trying to make it happen. So that just, prompted when you said that. I know that's going a little bit off track there, but that the mindset of, well, maybe I'm just one of the women who can't, and then trying to do it and having the goal, well, let's see if it's possible. Let's see if it's possible. It was actually the complete surrendering to, I am a pleasure being, I am an orgasmic being, and I let go of that chase and trying to prove my worth, trying to prove that I'm woman enough, trying to prove that I'm not broken, and just learning to reconnect. And it took a long time for that to click within me, because I would start going into these reconnecting sessions and going, all right, well, I'm taking away the goal. So why am I not having an orgasm? And then it would go back to, okay, I'm broken, I'm whatever. So it was this whole loop, and I had to take away this attachment and know that I'm not fucking broken, and take away this attachment to that meaning anything, that goal meaning I'm worthy or whatever, and just surrendering and letting go and accepting that I'm not okay with stifling a part of me anymore. And I'm just going to journey for as long as it takes, until it takes for the rest of my life. This is who I am. I am an embodied, unapologetic woman. And my only job and my only focus is to, detach any worth from that and know that I am this and just connect.
Yeah.
And that was when it, and it took me a while. And I say to women, that took a while for me. Like I said, I would go into, these connecting sessions with myself saying, well, I'm taking away the goal, so why am I not having an orgasm yet? Because I was still putting that as that's the be all and end all.
Right.
Whereas when I realized that so an orgasm, can we go into that? Can we talk about that?
Well, first I want to say this. Wouldn't it be wonderful? We're going to get there. We've got so many questions. It's going to be hard to fit this into one podcast, but I think it would be interesting if people stopped saying, oh, it's normal not to have an orgasm, and started saying, you're not having one because our society has never prioritized teaching you how to, and with, guide, and we teach sex. We don't teach pleasure. We teach literally a physical act that's meant to make babies. We don't teach pleasure. We don't teach women how to, ultimately we're teaching sex for the pleasure of men because they need to come for us to make babies. We don't need to come, so they don't bother with our pleasure. And so I think that would be interesting if we lived in a wonderful society that prioritized that. But first, before we get to fixing it, I would like you to talk about when women come to you and through your journey, what are the blocks to having an orgasm? What are the things that are stopping? If you could list some of the things, other than the obvious ones we've talked about, that are the actual blocks to women having orgasms, that'd be great.
Disconnect from the body. Number one, disconnect. And this can come from anything. So this is usually down to us never really learning how to connect in the first place. And I just want to touch on what you just said before, with the sex ed, yes, of course, we're taught, cock goes in vagina, wear a condom if you don't want to get pregnant, blah, blah, blah. But I feel like there's this fear of teaching pleasure because they think it will make, people more promiscuous or whatever the fuck. But when in fact, the more deeply connected you are and embodied with your pleasure in your body, that's a woman who can actually hold her boundaries a lot better, and who doesn't seek out fulfillment from people who drain that from her because she holds her boundaries. So I think that is such an important thing, but it's stuff we're not taught. But yes, so disconnect. And I know myself, I struggle with eating disorders, body hate, which a lot of us women, there's a lack of self-love. And I did the years of self-love, and I came a long way. I had a struggle with drugs at a young age, eating disorders, mental health, and I had done inner work for many years and overcome that. And I was so proud of that. But I hadn't really done anything to deepen my connection to my body. And my first way of connecting to my pleasure was with a super high-powered vibe. And the reason that we feel, so the external part of the clitoris, as listeners may or may not know, actually goes internally as well. But the external part is super sensitive, and a super high-powered vibe is a really, the most powerful way to connect. So a lot of us, we aren't taught how to connect in the first place, or we may have experienced trauma, or there's shame around bodies, shame, or we've never seen it embodied from people around us as we grow up, our early childhood experiences. And if you look back to particularly the women, mother or the women around you as a child, how did you see them, whether it was the words they said or not what they said, but how they, just how they acted around sex and females' bodies, that we have never connected. So then our first connection, and certainly mine, is we go, oh, okay, this super high powered vibrator makes me feel something.
Right.
And then we connect to that. That's our only way. And we become so reliant over time that we become more turned off to the subtleties of sensations and the subtleties inside our, vaginal muscles and inside our vagina. And we turn off to the subtleties that we need more of that super high powered friction to feel anything. So it's ultimately a disconnect from the body. Now, every person, every woman is individual, and there's, different things that cause us to disconnect. And in each moment, it's the overthinking and the inability to let go of control, and which is a huge one for, me as well, and a lot of women I work with, that outwardly, if you had looked at me 10, 20 years ago, I acted confident. I acted the tough bitch persona, or I acted that, and I put on this front in life because that was, how to portray this, I don't know, sexually empowered woman, which really it was this struggle to let go to that inside. So I was so disconnected from that. I would put on this front, but really there was no connection to that. And I had to essentially fake it in all aspects to feel anything. But disconnect would be number one, and disconnect to the body, the pussy, sexual energy, that is hands down. And that's what I'm so passionate about. And that, there's all different things that can contribute to that, but hands down, that's number one.
Yeah. And I think that makes sense and resonates too. Just not even knowing or feeling comfortable with our own bodies, unless because in our mind and in society, we've been told they have to look a certain way before they're sexy. They have to, all of this stuff. And then just all the other stuff that gets in the way. That makes sense. Definitely a lot of blocks. Do you get clients who have had a lot of sexual trauma?
Yes. And so I'm not a trauma, it's very important when women come to work with me, if they, that they have had their talk therapy. That's separate to the work that I do. I'm not a talk therapist. I'm not a, trauma therapist. I work with trauma in the body, the way that energy is stored. And there was actually a very powerful book. I don't know if you've ever heard The Body Keeps the Score. It's a very long book, but it was very eye-opening for me. So it was a psychiatrist a couple decades ago who started to realize that he was working with, trauma victims. He was working with post-war victims, and they were overcoming so much in their head, and that's a very vital part. So I will not work with someone if they haven't had that once they've experienced trauma, or if they're still in active trauma, they need to be doing the talk therapy alongside. Right. But he was working with his clients, moving through the talk therapy, but then their bodies were still in freeze, or they were still numb in their bodies. And he understood that there's a link that the body keeps the score. The body stores the trauma. And if we don't connect to that energy, then we're still going to be, numb from the body. We're going to stay in that trauma loop. The same stress response will keep occurring when we, move into intimacy. So that's the first key there, is cultivating safety to be in the body, even before, we don't go evoking any sexual energy. It's the safety to be in the body. And that's super important. But yeah, I'm very passionate about that. And it's like I said, I work with the energy of it. It's very different to, the psychology or the psychiatrist. I'm not qualified in that, never will claim to be. That has to be done separately. But I work with how they're still, perhaps numb in their, pussy, or they're, not feeling what they want to feel, or they're disconnecting from the body, or all sorts of things. But trauma is a huge one. Yeah.
All right. Well, cheers to reconnecting with the body, which I've been doing a lot. Really enjoy it. Daily, in fact, multiple times daily on some days, hopefully tonight.
Oh, I love it.
I was telling Ali that I think I'm getting laid tonight, so I'm in a pretty good mood. Anyways. But yeah, so let's move on. I mean, I kind of want to take it step by step when people come to you, like where you start with this path to learning how to experience pleasure, ultimately an orgasm without the heavy vibes bringing it on. So where do we want to start with that? Someone comes to you. What is the first step? I assume this is a process. I'm assuming you're not saying like tomorrow you're going to wake up and suddenly be capable. It's a process, correct?
Mm-hmm. It's absolutely capable in any moment, but it's the letting go to just, this is the journey now, and it takes as long as it takes, and I commit to just going deeper. That's who I am. But you cannot, this is not about, I've got a 6-week course where some women have experienced their first internal orgasm during the course. Some have just begun their journey. Some are, still dealing with more underlying trauma. So it's their safety in the body. Every journey is different, and you cannot compare. I personally took a couple years, but I didn't have someone, one person teaching me. I went for yoni massage and all those different things, but it takes as long as it takes. And you cannot, it's not fair for yourself to compare to someone else. This is what I tell the ladies in the 6 weeks. You may or may not awaken this as quick as you want, but it's surrendering to it just will happen, and looking at other women who ignite this, not as, why am I not there yet? Look at it as, oh my God, look what is possible.
Yes.
It really is possible. And use that as inspiration and go, these women, these other women like Ali, who thought they never could feel anything during sex, during penetration, are now having their first orgasms. So all I need to do is just keep connecting to me, keep letting go of that goal, and just staying with that connection and deepening that in the body. And that's the first number one step. Obviously, when I work with my high-level private clients, it's very, it's individual of what they need. But the very first step ultimately, and what I, talk about in my Becoming Orgasmic audiobook or in my 6-week course, the whole basis is starting to actually connect to sensations. So when I talk about connecting to the body, we do that. We connect, the language of our body is our sensations.
Right.
Now, when I started exploring with touch, for example, I felt nothing. I felt
interesting.
So when nothing.
Interesting. Okay.
And that's very, very common because we're so disconnected, like I said before, from the subtleties of sensations, and we're so conditioned to rely on something super high powered to feel anything that we turn off to the subtleties. So when there's different ways that we can connect to the sensations and that I teach. So it's using touch and also awareness. So right now, if I ask you, what's the strongest sensation you're feeling in your body? It could be pressure. It could be pressure of your ass on the seat. It could be a heart fluttering. It could be a tension in your neck. And what can you pinpoint that?
Right now, oh God, I am concentrating on my pelvis. I'm like, I definitely feel a lot of activity in my pelvis. We're talking about pussies, like, yeah. So I would say, I'm like the pressure against my seat, and then I'm like, am I feeling anything in my pussy? I guess that's what. But I think I'm like, now that I'm thinking about it.
But see how, so this is the first thing. And initially when I started that, I couldn't even really pinpoint things because I was so out of my body. But see how that little shift, and you realize, oh, I wasn't even in my body feeling.
Right.
See that? And it's this process of coming back to the body, not, this is separate to going in to explore with pleasure. This is about just connecting. And you learn to be with whatever is alive in your body in that moment, whether it's comfortable or uncomfortable. But you can't feel what's going on in your body if you're not in your body. And that very moment of when I say to people, what's going on in your body, and they have to stop and go, oh, hang on, I don't. And that's all of us. And we're not perfect. I'm not fucking
Yeah.
perfect. No one.
Yeah. No, now that I reconnect with my body, I notice mostly I'm like, are my legs swelling from being in this, like, I'm in a high chair. So my legs are dangling. I'm like, oh, I feel like I have fat feet right now. I'm sorry, guys, not sexy. Not sexy, I know, but you want the real truth over here. Short girl problems.
I'm a tall girl, so I don't know that. But
Oh,
yeah,
God.
see,
But yeah,
it's the coming back. And initially, and that's why I say my process was a few years, because it was piecing all these puzzle, pieces together that I condense and teach women now. But in the beginning, I was exploring and connecting to the body, trying to make pleasure happen.
mm,
Whereas I soon realized it's not about that. The pleasure will come, pun again intended, when you start just being with. And of course, when I was going into it initially, trying to make pleasure happen with my fingers, and I'm like, it's not working. This isn't working. I'm exploring and it's not working. It's like, well, of course I'm not going to feel anything. I've conditioned myself for so many years with a vibrator. My job here is to try and feel into this touch more and be present. And when you draw yourself back into the head going, oh, what am I doing? Is this working? Oh, that means you're in your head. And if you're in your head, you can't feel what's going on in your body.
I love that.
Come back to the sensations.
Speaking of coming back, we're gonna take a little break. We have got a short break for a short message for listeners, but when we come back, I want to circle back, and then we're gonna go on to the next steps to your definition of an orgasm, because I think you define it differently than I don't know, than what? I don't even know. I'm curious about what that definition is, and then we're gonna move into the next steps. So hold on there, listeners. I know you want to know how to get to that. I know you're all waiting for the process. That's why you're here. But you're going to have to wait for 1 minute. We're going to come back. We're going to get the definition. And then the last part of this podcast, the last half, is she's going to give it to us. She's going to give us orgasms. How do you feel about that, Ali?
Orgasms for everyone.
She's the orgasm fairy. So we will be right back. At the beginning of the year, I embarked on the 365 Days of Orgasms Challenge, and Fun Factory toys like the Lady Bi, a dual motor vibrator that hits my clit and G-spot simultaneously, have been making my orgasms faster, stronger, and way more fun. Here's the good news. Fun Factory makes tons of high-quality orgasmic toys that are both body-safe and eco-friendly, and you can buy them at a 20% discount when you use the code SELS20. That's right. Go to funfactory.com, and when you're ready to make a purchase, enter the code SELS20, or scroll down to the notes in this episode, hit the Fun Factory link, and when you're ready to make a purchase, enter the code SELS20. Then go enjoy your next mind-blowing orgasm. Cheers. And we're back. We were talking to pleasure coach Ali Gomulka. Come on, tell me how to say it right. I asked Ali before we started recording how to say her last name, and then she laughed at me several times as I said it. Go.
I think
Gomulka.
Well, I say Gomulka, but that's I think the Aussie slang on it. The Aussie, our accents, I think, will say it differently. But I say Gomulka. It's obviously different to the Polish pronunciation of it.
What is the Polish pronunciation?
Gomulka.
Look at me. I was kind of close to the Polish.
Yeah.
Or just
we don't
American.
Yeah. So there's not really any right or wrong, because we're not saying it the Polish way anyway. So.
All right. Well, now we all know, but we've been talking to her about one of the wonderful things she does for her clients, which is to teach them how to have the big O without a ton of vibration. Not that she's against the vibes, and y'all know I'm not. In fact, I'm like sitting over here with I have this in my kitchen counter.
I love it.
I don't know if you've ever seen this thing. What the fuck is it? It's like, this is my new thing from Fun Factory. Ooh. And I know it's not even, it's like, it just is like little lips that you put your clit on. But as wonderful as it is, and it is wonderful, I think that most of us vulva owners and women, we want I just got back from Hawaii, and on the way there, I packed, you guys don't even know what I went through to get all the toys that I wanted to Hawaii. I mean, I almost went over the weight restrictions on my bag. And there is that part of me that wants to, and I could, but I have a hard time enjoying myself as much without an aid, that wants to be able to just on the fly, fuck around and get my without feeling like, it's going to be too much work without a toy. And I do feel like that sometimes. And I would like to say, I also don't think that's necessarily should be the purpose of the toy, to be the only way to pleasure. It should add to the skill you already have. So I think it's really exciting that you're offering this opportunity for women to have orgasms without the toys, learn how to do that. And then if you want to add the toys, and it's like the icing on the cake that mixes things up. I guess that's my perspective. That's what I'm saying. But
that's exactly right. And that's what I say when people think I'm against vibrators, and I'm like, fuck no, I'm all for not being restricted, not feeling that you're restricted to one particular way to feel your pleasure. That's the women who come to me are women who generally feel that they are completely reliant on a vibrator, or perhaps have never even had an orgasm at all. But that's what I'm about, is expanding so you have that ability to drop into your pleasure in any way. That's what I'm passionate about.
So she said the first step was reconnecting with the body, but now we're working on reconnecting with the body. You asked me what I was feeling in my body, and instantly I was like, I have no fucking idea. Are you kidding me? I'm like worried about, is the camera working? Do I look like shit? Is it, that's what's going on in my head. So that was like a real, I've been spinning in my head ever since that, just going, God, that was a great demonstration. I didn't know what was going in my body. So moving forward, where do we go from there?
Okay, so when I'm guiding, when I just guided you then to connect to the sensation in your body, or when we're using touch to explore the sensation. So so did you want me to talk about what an orgasm is for this?
Oh God, yes. Geez, thanks for keeping me on track.
Yeah. Well, this will tie in. So an orgasm. Okay, so what so many of us are conditioned to believe is that an orgasm is essentially a certain location that you stimulate on your body, and then you feel that.
Yeah.
An orgasm, so what I, came to understand, from I guess the tantra world and the sexuality world there, an orgasm is a buildup and a release of energy in the body. Now you can connect to this, and I can see the wheels ticking in your
and I have been hearing this definition more, and I here's what I'm imagining you're faced with, and only recently am I able to start opening my mind to it. There's just some part of me that instantly was like, oh, that's some spiritual mumbo jumbo. But then as I have started to, on my own journey, have these next level orgasms, and I've had some crazy shit happen. Like I didn't even know my body was capable of. Only now, as I hear you saying this, am I kind of like, I think that she must be, I'm sorry, I'm a skeptic, but there's part of me that's like, I think she must be right. Cause some of the shit that's going on in my body has nothing to do with the spot. I mean, obviously waking those spots up and getting that pleasure is part of it, but then what happens after? And sometimes for up to, I don't even know how many minutes in my mind, sometimes it feels like an hour. I'll have to ask my partner. And sometimes it feels like the orgasm doesn't even end. Sometimes I'm just like, I need out of whatever this fucking space I'm in.
Yeah, so that's what it is. That's what's going on in the body. Is it's a buildup, a contraction, and a release. Now, so when we talk about, as I spoke about before, the clitoris, we've got the external, the hood, the external part that most people know the clitoris as. The clitoris also extends inside the vaginal walls as well. But the external clitoris is the most sensitive, right? And this, this becomes, for a lot of us and a lot of women, that we can connect to this energy in our body from that way because that's the most sensitive. Because the gateway to connect to this energy, and this is what I wanted to say, hopefully this is making sense. I'm not going too much around in circles, but to connect to this energy. So energy in the body moves on its own. Energy, is always moving. The gateway to that is sensations, which is emotions, not to be confused with feelings. Feelings are, if I was to say to you, I'm anxious, I'm sad, I'm angry. The emotions are energy in motion. The emotions underlying that are connected to the sensations. So I'm saying I'm angry, but my heart's racing, or I'm saying I'm sad, and whatever. So that's the gateway. That's how we connect to the energy in our body, is by our emotional body, which is our sensations. So you can connect to those sensations, as I was saying before, by dropping in and connecting. And then so in the somatic work, we use our breath, our sound, our movement to increase our body's ability to contract and release that energy. And this is, when women start experiencing, so I can start, tapping into that energy by swirling my hips, not even touching my pussy, and using that breath to, build that up. But
can we discuss that more?
Yeah.
Because I've been hearing about, love your demonstration too, but no, I mean, to be fair, I've been hearing more about the idea of breath work and movement. And breath work, the word on the street is, again, I'm a skeptic, is that you can have an orgasm just by doing breath work.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, because like I said, it's a build up and a release of energy in the body. And what I kind of, like I said, I'm going around in circles. I got so much I want to say, but with the, connecting via the external clitoris, because that's the easiest way for most of us to connect initially to the sensations, to the, the energy in the body. When we start to awaken the to the subtleties of sensation anywhere else, so internally as well, externally, so I'm talking with or without touch, then you can start to connect to that energy more. And so let's say, if I was to drop in with my breath, so I would sit here and I would just start to notice what's going on in my body. And then you can start using your breath to connect to that energy, and you touch, and you're staying there, and you're just using your breath to just stay there. Again, no goal. You're just using that. And then over time as well, so this is a process as well. Some women will come to me having weak orgasms, or they say, I feel like I'm nearly getting there, but it's not getting there. Mm-hmm. Like I'm feeling the buildup, but it's not going there. So this is increasing our body's ability to contract and release that energy. So by being in the body more, being with those sensations more, using our breath and our touch and our movement to stay with those sensations. And when we're using our touch to connect internally and externally, keeping our awareness there on those sensations, using our breath to stay. And again, when you're so disconnected from your body for so long, like I was, a whole fucking lifetime, over 30, I'll be 38 next month. So this is, I don't know the exact pinpoint in my 30s of when it awakened, but I was over 30 when I started the journey, and it started to really awaken. But when I first started and was starting to touch, it would have been absurd for someone to tell me you can feel your orgasm via breath, because I couldn't even fucking feel anything when I was stroking the external. But it was because I wasn't fully present to those sensations and to what was going on in my body. So it's staying with it, staying with that sensation, staying with whatever you're feeling, whether it's pleasurable or not. And you're staying there, and same with the breath. You're staying in the body. You're not trying to force anything to happen. You're staying there, staying there, staying there. And the more you stay and connect in your body, the more you start to feel, like the demonstration just before of how you realize when you're not used to being connecting to your body, you go, oh shit, hang on, what's going on in my body? Yeah. So you imagine over time using, a combination of touch to actually awaken, the
Can I ask
internal tissue. Yes.
I'm totally a student over here. So when you say
Yes.
you use touch and you use your breath, so when you say, I'm like, so does that mean you're like touching yourself while breathing? And you're
Okay. So
can you explain? I need to know this breath thing. Is there a certain breathing pattern, or are you breathing as a reaction to? Can you help me out a little bit?
there are an tantra, they'll try. I'm not really. This is. I feel like I feel like I'm in the in between world.
Yeah, I like that.
I'm too fucking out there and rah 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 for the sacred, the kind of hippie world, but then I'm too woo woo for the normal. So I feel like I'm the connector, and I am what I kind of needed back then, because I am interested in more of the spirituality, sacred stuff to a degree, but I didn't want to know that. I didn't want to, I didn't want to be in that world. I just wanted to know how to fucking orgasm.
Yeah,
so I feel like I'm that link for those people. But so the breath, your breath is your key. So in meditation, this is your breath is your key to being fully present in your body. So it's almost like a meditation to drop you into your body initially. And when I'm doing guided practices and all that, it's always starting by just connecting to your breath in that way, by connecting to the air going in and out of your body. But then when I would use touch, it's just, it's just repetitive, and it's super light, super, super light. I'm talking on the external part here.
You mean on the vulva? So you're just
well, yeah. So essentially, let's say, the listeners won't hear, but let's say from the top of the split, so where the top of your clit is, right down to the bottom, you're stroking with the very edge of your finger super, super, super lightly.
It's the split, so which you mean the top of the hood almost, where the bean.
Yeah.
I call the clit the bean. The bean pokes out. Hopefully.
Yeah. So right from the top of there, and you're just guiding your finger as lightly as you can. You want to be reaching out for that touch as lightly as you can down to the very bottom of, the lips of where the split ends, and then starting again. And
so for listeners, if after you listen, you want to actually see the demonstration, head over to YouTube, Annette Benedetti on YouTube, and you will actually be able to see her demonstration.
And there's different, I used, variation, and I do little videos on my social media and that. I use variation of touch to awaken, but that was, the first one. They call it essentially orgasmic meditation. There's a method that you can get your partner to help you and do this. But ladies, the key to this, if you're having a partner do this, is they need to be okay with holding their own arousal. And this is separate from sex, because the whole point of this is you need to surrender to just whatever arises without expectation of arousal. So it needs to be separate. This is purely for the woman to help reconnect. And my ex-partner back then was great and did a lot of this with me. But what happens, and when I started to explore with fingers initially, and I'd say, and women will say to me now, I've explored and it doesn't work, I don't feel anything. I'm like, yes, but there's a difference between exploring and staying fully in the body when you explore. And that was the kicker, and this was the flip, and that started the awakening to more. That when you start exploring, if you're in your head, when you're starting this repetitive touch, if you're in your head going, am I feeling anything? Am I feeling pleasure? Am I not feeling pleasure? Should I feel pleasure? Am I going to have an orgasm? When is it going to happen? Ali told me it would happen. Is it going to happen? Then you're not in your body feeling the sensations. So the key is to come back with your breath. So this is where the breath, you can come back, bring your awareness to the breath first, if you need a bit of a breather, and then you come back to, what am I feeling? And then, so I know you asked a question on breath, and I went on a big roundabout circle here, but the sound. So sound, these are the ways that I was saying before that can help us contract and release energy in the body. So again, I don't know, there's so many different ways, but on the exhalation, and this is actually very confronting as well for women who may be stifling sound in the bedroom. And again, I would act like the confident woman and thought I was confident. All of this was confronting as fuck to me. And let me tell you, when I started touching and I was looking in the mirror, oh my God, I thought I was confident, and I started this and I thought, oh my God, what if people are looking in my window? This is so embarrassing. I didn't realize how much shame I was holding until I started this. but the exhalation, almost like an orgasmic, you can do, which sounds ridiculous to other people and may be triggering for people listening to that. I know it was triggering for me, but this opening of the throat. So when they talk, again, I'm not very in depth with that, but when you're talking energy centers, and which is very real, this isn't, heebie-jeebie, this is very real in the body, our energy centers, but our throat energy center, throat chakra, they call it, is connected to your sex center. So if you're stifling sound there, this is why the breath and the sound, when you start opening and allowing this to freely express, you're starting to open your sex center, opening there without sounding too hippie. Yes.
Can I share? It's so funny because without knowing any of this until talking to you, I had written about in one of my little diary entries about my 365-day challenge. I was really getting frustrated because it was taking me like 45 minutes to come. And one day I was kind of like, maybe I'll make noise. And I was in my own masturbation, I wouldn't make noise. I was out of shame. I was literally masturbating like a little Catholic girl that I grew up as, just like, no noise. And so I was like, I'm like, all right. And I started making noise and I started coming faster and faster and faster. And I was like, what the fuck? And of course I have, again, I have no teacher or anything like that. So I didn't know. It's interesting that now you bring this up and I'm like, oh, because it was a game changer. It definitely has sped up. I am way louder in bed now. I mean, not in like the porn scream way, but like the guttural sounds that I'll make. And then that's slowly moved into my ability to talk during sex. And because I have a really hard time in the middle of sex saying, oh, don't move your hand like that. Now I'll just, my body doesn't, my mind doesn't even kick in and my body just says, will say, just don't stop or speed up or, so it does, you're right. It's interesting that you give an explanation to that and being blocked. For sure.
When you allow those sounds to freely come out, and I'm noisy as fuck during sex, but it's not because I'm trying or I'm trying to sound like porno. It's because I just let whatever wants to come out now. And when I do, when there's been times like if there's kids or people too close and I stifle that sound, I notice and I feel that I'm stifling that in my body. But when you start to freely, and this is where it's great to start exploring this in your own, self-pleasure and your own connecting, and you'll realize, like I said, you'll think well, I'm confident, I'm fine, and all this shit will come up and you go, oh my God, no wonder I couldn't feel my orgasm. No wonder my orgasm was stifled. I wasn't even in my body. I was still holding the shame around looking at myself, touching or, expressing sound. And I was too busy in my head, and it starts to click and you go, oh my God, like no wonder I have these light bulb moments. I couldn't feel anything back then because of all those things. And it's such a beautiful, journey to awaken to, and you go, wow, this was in me all along. This was here. Like I really had this. I was this multi-orgasmic with ease and flow, that has the most incredible, pleasure, sex, soul expanding, time stops, orgasms, without touch and with breath. Like I was this woman. And here I was putting other women on a pedestal thinking they've got something I don't. Holy shit, this was me all along. I just hadn't been connecting to that.
Yeah.
So it's fucking, whew.
I mean, I'm not even where you are. And I'm still like, as I look back, stunned at where I was and where I am now. And it's pretty fantastic to be talking to someone who, like I interview, I'm a researcher, a writer. I am not a pleasure coach. I do not have the knowledge or certification or anything that you do. So it's pretty exciting to have my lived experience match up with things that you were saying. And here's the thing that's interesting to me. I'm a personality type. There are some people who are just really more open to the things you are saying, like from the get-go.
Mhm.
I'm like one of those people who's like, prove it.
Skeptic.
Like you're full of shit. Like don't bullshit me. You can't bullshit a bullshitter. And so this is, it's kind of funny knowing who I am. And then to be here, if you had said some of this stuff to me last year, I would have, of course, been like, oh yeah, let's get the information out. Interesting. I probably would have gotten off and been like, okay. Like,
Yep.
all right. Woo. But the reality is what you were saying literally matches up with things I've been writing down with no explanation to why. Like, why would making noise suddenly make a difference? And it makes sense. I have done a lot of work with meditation throughout my life. So the idea of using, and I always use breath to center myself and calm myself down. So it makes a lot of sense. So just for listeners who are like me, I'm just saying, there's like this will resonate if you ever go on this journey. It resonates deeply with me.
I wouldn't have believed any of this shit back in the day either. Yeah. Like I said, I would have been there with my pitchfork going, no, I am one of those women who need a vibrator to come. I cannot come by penetration. I would have, taken that to the grave. And I love
the pitchfork. You've got the pitchfork, and then today we're gonna have to segue really quick to that. I was watching her TikTok and she has a crystal wand that she was sharing, unboxing online. So from let's talk about, because it's interesting. I was like, oh, but she's got a toy, but it's a toy without vibration, which makes sense if you are wanting to use, I have glass toys that I like to use externally, or my partner will actually sit in front of me as I'm laying very lazily in front with my legs spread and use a glass toy to stimulate me inside, which turns out to be fucking wonderful. But so you had a crystal. I want to hear about the pitchfork to the crystal wand.
I didn't on my journey though. I didn't know about pleasure wands. So for listeners, so a crystal or a glass pleasure wand, there's different shapes, different curves, different textures to connect internally in different ways. I did not know about these. I know about them now because I'm an affiliate, because I'm so fucking passionate. Right. But when I connected, and you don't have to have them to connect internally. Right. I didn't initially, but I used my fingers. It's there's limited reach you can get, and your hands can ache, which is what a lot of women will say. And it's I would imagine for people who are disabled in certain ways where they can't really use their hands as effectively. Yes. Right. So pleasure wands, I added them in when I knew and started becoming a coach in this. I didn't know about them. And now, so they are incredible. If you are wanting to start exploring, to feel more internally and starting to de-armor, which is a whole other thing, vaginal muscles store tension. So you need to release that, because you can have potential numbness and that. Pleasure wands are incredible for that. And if you go to any of my sites, I've got the links and you can ask me questions about them. They are incredible for helping to reach particular spots and connect. And again, if you had have said that to me, I would have looked at that back then and gone, that doesn't look pleasurable. Where's the fucking vibration? Where's the, it looks like a, I don't know, how is that pleasurable? But it's an intentional connection. And you start, oh my God. It's not this forced adrenaline-based, pleasure. It's this connecting, and you start going, holy cow, I'm starting to fucking feel more. But they are incredible for listeners. If you're listening, women, vulva owners, if you're listening to this and you want to start connecting internally, you don't have to have anything other than yourself. But if you are in a position to, add in some additional tools, they are incredible for helping to reconnect to the tissue inside and awaken to the subtleties where you begin to go, oh holy shit, whoa, right. Was this inside me all along?
It is inside you. I have
Yeah.
found spots inside of me that I have never known existed. And I think you're right. I could not have found them if I hadn't started waking up that energy. And like, I don't even want to call it desire, because sometimes it's like, it's not like, there are times when I'm not desiring another person or desiring sex, but I'll feel the energetic need for the orgasmic release. And I want to be into that. I'm not even
Yeah.
into the sexual mind frame. I'm not thinking about sex, but I'll feel that. Like the pussy is calling and it will not shut the
Yeah.
fuck up. And it's always when I have a deadline. It's always when I have a deadline. And I'm not shitting you. Like, I will be writing and I'll be like, I have an hour to get this in. And my pussy is like, we've got to go.
Pussy knows what pussy wants.
And I will actually have to go and fucking make myself come to finish my job. That's
Wow.
a true
Love it.
story. But yeah, but I think until I really learned how to harness that, I couldn't have necessarily touched those spots with a wand or with anything else.
Well, and that's right, because, you know, like I said, I tried exploring before I understood this stuff. I tried exploring and I would put my fingers inside me, but there was no actual connection in there. So it's different to just fingering around and touching around or putting something inside you. It's the full presence to that energy in your body and the sensations there that starts awakening.
Right. We have so much more, I know, I want to talk about with you, but we're winding up. Like, I could talk. It's so funny, from the time that I connected with Ali online, on TikTok, to trying to figure out our time difference and set up this call. There was just something across the distance. I was like, this is going to be a good connection. This is going to be a good conversation. And then we started talking before the podcast. I'm like, oh my fucking God, this is going to be hard to rein into. And it was just like,
it's hard to rein me
your
in.
energy and my energy and our interest and your passion and knowledge, which is really exciting to link up with my personal experience. But I feel like you've given listeners at least an idea of where it starts. I know that there's so much more to the to what you walk your clients through, and perhaps we can connect after this and we can talk about a part 2, if that's...
I would love that.
Because I don't feel like we're ready to stop, but I also know that that's that we're at. So listeners, I'm not going to leave you hanging. I think we should talk after this, because I think this is so important for women and vulva owners. But I also think, I know that I have a good number of male and penis owning listeners out there who have partners who they really, who they love and who they feel suffer in this way and are missing out. And so I think it's worthwhile to give this more time.
I have some incredible men on that topic. I just want to say I have some incredible fucking men and kings that, will come onto my lives on social media or my, comments or message. And they're like, oh my God, I want to help my queen feel this in her body. This is so amazing that you're speaking about this. So this is fucking epic. All of us, none of us are born knowing this stuff. None of us. So these are conversations that need to be had so we can all feel what we were put here to fucking feel. Light ourselves up, come to life as the versions of us that we were meant to be. And
I love that you say that, because if there is one thing on my podcast journey that has surprised me, because everybody knows I'm a pretty hardcore feminist and I can be pretty harsh on men at times. I have been truly impressed and moved by how many men and penis owners have actually reached out to me in the most kind of awesome way, asking the same thing, talking about partners they love, and like, oh my God, thank you for talking about this. And a big part of what I think both you and I do that's really important is normalizing the conversation around sex and pleasure, normalizing the conversation around sex and pleasure.
Yep.
So,
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
So yeah, we will, after this, we'll talk about how we can get together again and maybe start at this point, move forward and take this conversation deeper, because I think this
Super
is
excited.
I'm very passionate about this. So, but before we go, Ali, I want you to share all of the ways people can get in touch with you, link up with you, follow you, and get your message in real time. So take it away.
Okay, so you can, I need to get a new website done at this stage. So I don't have that at this stage, but on social media, I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, not so much, but you can contact me via there, or perhaps via there would be the best way. But I have a Becoming Orgasmic audio book at the moment, $17 audio book. This is condensing it all into it's just under 5 hours, taking you through what to do and all of this that I've spoken about. So if you want, somewhere easy to start, that would be perfect. And I suggest there's links on all of my social media. In my link tree, you can go into there, the Becoming Orgasmic audiobook. If you are ready to dive completely into this and go, yep, this is it. This is, I want her guidance. I want the guided videos, the training, all of that. My 6-week Ignite Your Pleasure Power course is it. This is the daily videos from me. This is taking you, week by week, day by day. So it's daily content, guided practices. Like I said, this is taking you into the depths of your unapologetic pleasure, orgasmic pleasure, turn on, sexual fucking fire, and igniting this from within. And this is, when you're, like I said, it can happen quick, it can take longer. There is no rule, and you've got to be, ready to, this is like I was ready to, this is it. I'm ready to go deeper and make my commitment to reconnecting to my body, my pussy, my sexual energy, in the deepest way, and igniting this from within. Or I do have a limited number of deep, the only way that I work one-on-one these days is in a very deep 3-month or 6-month journey with clients who are wanting that really intimate, high-level experience with me, and that's a very private coaching, and that's that's a conversation that needs to be had. So you can message me and we can chat and see if it's a fit for you, a fit for me. That's a really in-depth. But yeah, the other 2 ways: the Becoming Orgasmic audiobook or the 6-week course. I would be honored to take you through this work in those ways. So have a look on my social media link trees. And
I will definitely, as always, if you scroll down, I put all of her links in the description of this podcast. So
awesome.
make sure to check them out. I am going to really quickly give a shout out to BK Cub. I have a Patreon, and this individual signed up at the highest level, which is not very expensive at all. And part of the perk is that you get a shout out. And I want to give this person an extra shout out, because when I reached out to them and said, hey, thanks for subscribing at this level, I'll do your shout out. Is there anything in particular? They're like, you don't have to do it if you don't want to. If it's too much work, I just wanted to support you. And God, all right, my little cub.
I
just want to tell
that.
you, I've been thinking about you since then. I think that was really thoughtful, and I appreciate the support, because I am working really hard to, get some good information out there, normalize the conversation about sex, strip away shame for every gender, which I think is super important. So thank you for that support, listeners. If you are interested, I do have a Patreon. I just opened up the She Explores Life shop, getting some really cool merch up there. Anything you buy goes to help me continue the show. If you want to find me, I'm going to give you the rundown really quick once more. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Locker Room Talking Shots or She Explores Life. You can find my personal Instagram, which is open, at Being Benedetti. You can find me on YouTube at Annette Benedetti, and that's where the video version of this podcast is going to be posted. check out sheexploreslife.com for articles, which, by the way, I will be doing a profile on Ali personally. So if you want to know more about her, I'm going to be shooting her off some questions. And by the time this goes up, hopefully I will have that done so you can learn a little bit more about her. Locker Room Talk podcast.com. And then finally, I'm on TikTok. That's what brought me and Ali together. It was destiny.
Yes.
And you can find me there at Locker Room Talk Podcast. I believe that's what it is. So that's all of my stuff that I run down every time we come together. Ali, thank you so much for joining me. This was a fantastic conversation.
I should have just said, by the way, you just made me think when you said that, my name on my social media profiles is all just Ali Gomulka. If anyone's searching, if you forget the link or whatever, but we'll pop that below. But yes, thank you so much for having me. It has been an honor to share this with you and your incredible listeners to, help my mission of the world becoming more orgasmic.
I mean, I feel like it would be a better fucking place. I mean, come on. You could not tell me we wouldn't all be much nicer to each other if we were all orgasming all the time.
Oh my God. Exactly.
So listeners, until next time, I will see you in the locker room. Cheers.
Bye.
Do the sex.